discuss India during advent of European traders or Europeans. It starts with fall of Mughals. Brief background: establishment. The Mughal Empire, which was established in 1526 by Jahiruddin Babur and reached its height of power under Emperor Akbar in the second half of 16th century, started to fall apart quickly after reign of final great emperor Aurangzeb, who ruled 1657 to 1707. Its capital was regarded as the dominant power center in the entire eastern hemisphere, even in the first part of 17th century, but within 50 years it was clear that this magnificent empire was on the slide. First half of the 18th century, during this period, the mighty Mughal Empire, the envy of its contemporaries for nearly 2 centuries, began to crumble and fall apart. The Mughal Empire dwindled to a few square miles in the area surrounded Delhi as the Mughal emperors lost their influence and splendor. Weakness of the contemporary India: the great Mughal emperor was eventually reduced to the status of a meager pensioner of a foreign power in 1803 when Delhi was taken over by the British troops. The process of this vast empire's decline illustrates some of the flaws and weakness of the India's medieval social, economic, and political framework that led to the English East India Company, the eventual subjugation of the nation. Aurangzeb's challenge to the English, the unity and the stability of the empire, had been shaken up during the long and strong reign of Aurangzeb. Yet, despite his many harmful policies, the Mughal administration was still quite efficient and the Mughal army quite strong at the time of his death in 1707. Moreover, the Mughal dynasty still commands respect in the country. The 150 years, the period between 1707 and the Aurangzeb's death, and the 1857, when the last of the Mughals, Bahadur Shah Jafar, was deposed by the British, there were as many as 12 Mughals who were occupying the throne. Nadir Shah and Ahmad Shah Abdali, they attacked 6 times between 1748 and 1767 and carried out devastating assault on Muhammad Shah 1719 and Shah Alam 1759-1806, two of those who have endured the longest. The Mughal Empire's foundation were entirely disrupted by this aggregation, which also caused insurrection, revolt, and discontinuation by neighboring regional power. Cause of the decline of the Mughals: there are two main schools of thoughts among scholars: those who see the issue as a general empire-centric and others who see the development as a regional. The Mughal-centric or empire-related, these viewpoints locate the roots of the decline within the design and operation of the empire itself. The regional-centric, the upheaval and instability in the various regions of the empire are the root cause of the Mughal declines according to the reason related to perspective. Social cause: diversity of Mughal nobility. The vast majority of the Mughals nobility were foreigners from diverse regions of Central Asia. As a result, the nobility was divided into several ethno-religious groupings, with the Turani and Irani groups emerging as the most dominant. Peasant rebellion: the recurrent peasant uprisings in the late 17th and early 18th century were a significant factor in the decline of Mughal Empire, and it is conceivable that the crisis of the ruling elites had a role of these uprisings. Shifting allegiance of zamindars: the Mughal compromise is thought to have entirely fallen apart, and the main zamindars started to rebel against the Mughal state to get their portion of the surplus. Political causes. Nature of Mughal state. The Mughal government was primarily a police state that focused on maintaining both internal and external order as well as revenue collection. Decentralization of administration. Decentralized administration due to the rise of the regional power, foreign invasion. The Mughal faced numerous assaults from the northwest, but they were unable to mount a strong defense because of lack of internal power. The latter Mughals had neglected the northwesterly frontiers, and little effort was made to maintain the line. Weak rulers after Aurangzeb. Because the Mughals' form of government was despotic and heavily reliant on the emperor's personality, a succession of weak rulers were evident in every aspect of administration. Defective law of succession. The tradition that would have given the firstborn child priority over the sibling in succession to the throne. Primogeniture. Degeneration of Mughal nobility. The main factor in the nobility's decline was that it progressively turned into a close company. The estate's position became hereditary and reserved for a select group of families. Court factions. Influential nobles at the court formed a pressure group. Towards the end of Aurangzeb's rule, prominent nobles were Turanis, the lord from the Transoxania, made up the Turani or Central Asian Party. It was led by Ghazi Uddin Khan, Firoz Jung, and his son Chin Kulik Khan. Nizamul Mulk. The Persian factions were led by Amir Khan, Ishaq Khan, and Sadat Khan. These factions maintained their retainers, who were typically drawn from the Central Asia or Persia, depending on the situation. Hindustani Party, whose leader during this period were Sayyid Abdullah Khan and Sayyid Hussain Khan, known as a Sayyid brother, enjoyed the support of Hindus. Rise of the regional aspirations. During the Aurangzeb's own rule, strong regional factions like the Jats, Sikhs, and Marathas rebelled against the Mughal monarchy to found their kingdom. Economic causes. Jagirdari crisis. Many of them had to go years without a Jagir since there were too many Mansabdars chasing too few Jagirs. Even when a Jagir was assigned, there was no guarantee that they would not be reassigned soon after. The Mansabdars controlled almost 4/5 of the Mughal Empire's land revenue income. It was highly unevenly distributed. Only 445 of the approximately 8,000 Mansabdar in the middle of the 17th century held control over 6% of the empire's total revenue. Deccan campaign of Aurangzeb. After Bijapur and Golconda were conquered, revenue increased by 23%, but Aurangzeb preferred to use these funds to support his Deccan campaign rather than sharing the extra money with his Mansabdars. Military crisis. No Mansabdar kept the necessary number of men and horses, and neither was there any efficient oversight because the security of the empire ultimately depend on its military strength. This weakening of the army was deadly for the empire. Other causes coming of the Europeans. The Mughal Empire was rapidly disintegrated after Aurangzeb's death. However, European countries were looking to create a monopoly on commerce with the East India due to their breakthrough in the sea navigation and their desire to expand their trade. Absence of the spirit of political nationalism, India at the time lacked the elements which constitute a modern nation. The people of India did not feel that they were all Indians, nor were they conscious of the oneness or having common interest, even though elements of cultural unity had existed in the country for centuries. Therefore, there did not exist the ideal of living and dying up for one's nation. Instead, people were loyal to persons, tributes, tribes, castes, and religious sectors. Conclusion. However, due to major geographical disparities in the local economics, some historians argue that poverty and economic pressure do not seem to be an entirely appropriate explanation for these uprisings and the final fall of Mughal state. Therefore, the contemporary revisionist literature encourages us to abandon this centralized viewpoint and examine the issue from the perspective of peripheral. Okay.